Today I'm going to argue that the man who revived Doctor Who in 2005 once took one of Babylon 5's grandest ideas, albeit one with a deflating execution, and spun it into one of the most crucial stories of the 21st century by recreating it in a Manchester kitchen, in a sci-fi miniseries you've probably never heard of. So what I'm going to do today is analyse a pivotal scene from probably my favourite sci-fi show, Babylon 5. I'll quickly run through what I think are the top 5 sci-fi miniseries of all time, and then I will analyse the same scene, executed in the most different and brutal way possible 6 years later by Russell T. Finally, I'll explain why the later version works so much better. The Babylon 5 scene in question is the culmination of the main Shadow War arc in Season 4, Episode 6, Into the Fire. Imagine standing at the center of a three-way shooting gallery with 1 million starships, watching the gods of your universe prepare to incinerate a planet of 6 billion people just to prove a point. Captain John Sheridan aboard his White Star is informed that the humans and other lesser races' presence in the field is so inconsequential to these vastly superior powers that it hasn't even been registered in the field. So he detonates a few previously deployed nukes as a wake-up call. It's an absurdly ballsy and fun opening for a story that quickly stops being about explosions and starts being about the trauma of growing up. Most science fiction treats ancient, advanced races as either benevolent mentors or Cthulhu-style nightmares, and this show has until now, but Into the Fire does something much more insulting. It treats them like a pair of toxic parents who refuse to get a divorce. The scale of the conflict is almost impossible to grasp, thousands of Vorlon and Shadow ships materializing out of the black, so focused on their mutual hatred that they don't even notice the younger races until Sheridan forces their hand. But the real war is happening inside a psychic stasis field. When the Vorlons and Shadows pull Sheridan and Delenn into their respective visions, we see the Vorlons for what they really are, stagnant, obsessed with a rigid, suffocating order. On the other side, the Shadows hide behind the faces of friends and trusted colleagues, whispering that growth through pain is the only way forward, manipulating the younger races into wars against each other, infiltrating their media, their politics to set the hate on a rolling boil. Sounds like Palantir or Cambridge Analytica. They've been playing this game for eons, using the younger civilizations as proxies in an ideological chess match that neither side is actually interested in winning. If any video gamers find this familiar, it's because the Reapers from Mass Effect are basically the Shadows. They're also the League of Shadows from Batman, of course, and I'm sure there are other examples. Sheridan's breakthrough is a realization about the nature of the game. He sees that the Vorlons could have destroyed the Shadow homeworld Zahadum at any time. They didn't because they weren't trying to win a war, they were trying to win an argument. As Delenn observes, it's about ideology. If you kill the enemy, the debate ends, and these gods are terrified of being alone with nothing to argue about. Sheridan throws their own philosophy back at them, invoking the old Vorlon proverb that understanding is a three-edged sword, your side, their side, and the truth. And the truth is, the kids are tired of the fighting. The scene hits hardest when the Shadows and Vorlons try to exert their final bit of authority, threatening to wipe everyone out if they don't pick a side. This is the all is lost moment where the fleet is trapped in a sub-zero missile cloud, jump engines dead. But then something beautiful happens. A Drazi warship, the Strakath, puts itself in the way of a missile meant for Sheridan and Delenn. It's a silent, profound rejection of the old gods. The other ships in the fleet form a ring around the White Star. It's quite moving. Delenn and Sheridan realize they don't need to be stronger than the gods of the past, they just need to be more unified. When Sheridan shouts, "Get the hell out of our galaxy," he's performing a cosmic eviction. He's telling these ancient beings that their mentorship has become a parasite. By the time Lorien, the oldest being in the galaxy, steps in to guide the others beyond the rim, the tone shifts from high-stakes action to a strange, melancholy funeral. Both antagonists are suddenly small, fragile, and afraid of being alone. As they vanish into the warp, the silence left behind is heavy. The show leaves us with a victory that feels remarkably like a burden. There are no more beings of pure energy or crabs of purest Vantablack to blame for our mistakes, and no more ancient wisdom to fall back on. It's a terrifying kind of freedom. We're left with the image of a galaxy that finally belongs to the people living in it, provided they don't wipe themselves out before they figure out what to do with the keys. Now, this show can make me laugh, cry, jump out of my chair and punch the air. It's brilliant, but this scene, as many fans would agree, isn't. It's not horrible or anything. Shooting their way out of a situation this overwhelming was always going to be preposterous. It's a strong idea that just doesn't quite work on screen here. The moment where the ships surround our heroes is powerful for sure, classic Babylon 5. But the rest, something in the execution, the tone just feels off. For seasons, the Shadows were these terrifying whispers in the dark, and the Vorlons were enigmatic, godlike entities. Then, in the span of about 20 minutes screen time, they're reduced to a pair of bickering parents in a cosmic divorce court, while Sheridan's outbursts land just the wrong side of cheesy. and even exuberant maybe? The resolution also relies heavily on Lorien, who often feels like a deus ex machina in a bathrobe. It's an idea I really like that just doesn't quite land as powerfully as it could. And that, dear viewers, is what I believe a rising star of the writing world called Russell T Davies said to himself when he saw it in 1997. I have no doubt he did see it. He was writing a drama about a hotel in the 1920s at the time, and would go on to create the award-winning Queer as Folk, but since then he's gone on to become one of the biggest names in sci-fi television, ever. I'm going to assume he was a long-time fan of the genre and was all in on something as crucial as Babylon 5. So as promised, before I talk about how RTD took a disappointing Babylon 5 scene and turned it into what I think is the greatest TV miniseries ever, I spent some time trying to figure out what actually are my top 5 sci-fi miniseries, and I had an interesting revelation. So first of all, I would put V there, I would put Battlestar Galactica there, and then I realised, holy crap, RTD, who's written and overseen what I thought was some pretty bad Doctor Who and Torchwood over the years, is responsible for the other 3. I'd never realised this before, as I've never made this list before. Is Russell T Davies the greatest sci-fi miniseries writer of all time? You're thinking, what? 3, Jonathan? How? Well, here's how. First of all, Torchwood's Children of Earth. Problematic now due to the starring presence of John Barrowman, who some viewers may find distasteful, but looking at the series in a vacuum is a work of twisted genius and one of the most brutal, gripping and ultimately devastating things I've ever watched. It left me wondering if RTD was okay, to be completely honest. I haven't myself watched it in many years, but if you can compartmentalize the cast and haven't seen it, it's a ride. Just be prepared once the credits roll on episode 5 to find yourself staring into the middle distance thinking, Jesus Christ, and getting used to the fact that it's a story that will stay with you. Second, Years and Years. I only recently watched this near-future predictive tale of a British family dealing with the increasingly frightening world of ours over 15 years as it slides ever further into populist fascism under Prime Minister Vivian Rook, who's like a twisted mutant fusing of Nigel Farage and Liz Truss. Watching it years after it was made was an eye-opener and had me wondering if the man has a TARDIS himself, because the accuracy with which he predicted a lot of the things that have happened since is really quite impressive, and a little scary considering the stuff that hasn't happened yet, as there's still 8 years to go. Oh, and Rory Kinnear's in it, which is reason enough to watch anything. And now finally to the second subject of today's video, to me the single greatest TV miniseries of all time, a show released in 2003 which I'm pretty sure was not widely watched or discussed despite its obvious brilliance and hugely controversial story. It was called The Second Coming and starred Leslie Sharp and a pre-Ninth Doctor Christopher Eccleston in what I think is his greatest ever performance. I'm not sure you can even see it anymore without a DVD, although the second half is on YouTube, which is a shame because I think it's one of the most powerful and relevant stories of the 21st century. Oh, and Rory Kinnear's in this one too. Before we hit this scene, you're going to need some context. I promise it's worth it. This is an incredible tale. Many years after he should have done it, Stephen Baxter kisses his best friend Judith outside a Manchester pub. Halfway through, he pulls away wide-eyed and runs off into the night. After vanishing to the moors for 40 nights, this normal northern bloke returns to Manchester and tells his friends he's the son of God. This isn't one of those stories where we go, is he, isn't he, where we get bits of evidence in support but are never quite sure. Baxter marches into Main Road Stadium in the middle of the night and brings the sun out. He's the son of God, all right. The only person who takes a long time to grasp this is Judith, but she believes him after a while. A furious Stephen tells the world's media that God is angry with us, that practically nobody gets to heaven, and that we have one last chance to save humanity if we can agree on and deliver a third testament by a deadline a few days later. There's a 3.5-minute video of him delivering this speech on YouTube that I thoroughly recommend you check out after watching this. It's really brilliant stuff by Eccleston. It's called The Second Coming, You Lot. The world predictably goes nuts. Everyone alive is traumatized in some way by the revelations that the Christian God is real, that their relatives are in hell, and that Judgment Day is here. The tone of the series is scary as hell. It's like a spiritual horror thriller. Demons take over local people and try to corrupt Stephen's circle of friends, and their deeply disturbing dialogue and the way their eyes look has always stayed with me. Mark Benton's performance as the devil in particular is memorably creepy, scary and slimy in equal measure. Baxter is taken into protective custody where he receives millions of contradicting attempts at a third testament in letter or email form, more than he could even count in the time, let alone read. Then Judith rings him and says she'd like to be with him at the end of the world, says that she knows what the third testament is. So Baxter Jedi mind tricks his way out of custody and to her home. The scene takes place in the most working class, bog standard, basic British kitchen you can imagine. It starts with a bowl of pasta and a box of rat poison in a kitchen that smells like damp tea towels and Finder's crispy pancakes. This is how the world ends, not with a celestial trumpet or a grand trial in the clouds, but with two old friends sitting at a table in a northern working-class terraced house, arguing about whether God deserves to exist. Stephen Baxter is the son of God, but as he sits there, Judith, the person who knows him best, is serving him a death sentence seasoned with arsenic and strychnine. Oh, and to be clear, she flat out tells him it's full of rat poison, there's no trickery involved. She even casually offers him a beer to help wash it down. The brilliance of this scene lies in how it drags the infinite down into the dirt. Most stories about the Messiah focus on the weight of the cross or the glory of the resurrection, but RTD is more interested in trapping the divine in a cramped kitchen and making it answer deeply uncomfortable human questions. Judith sees clearly what Stephen can't, that as long as there's a God on the throne, humanity can't grow up. She argues that we waste our 70 years on Earth because we're always looking at the exit sign, waiting for a reward or fearing a punishment that makes our actual lives feel like a dress rehearsal. So her third testament isn't a book of laws, it's a judgment on the Creator himself. She tells him that the only way to save us is to leave us, properly and forever, taking heaven, hell, and the whole family business with him. Then comes the moment that actually breaks the universe, or fixes it. Stephen, still clinging to his divinity, suggests he could just stay, that he could fix everything because you lot need me. He asks Judith why she never asked him out. He could never do it. They've been friends forever. He always loved her and she always knew. And she fixes him in the eye and she says, "I was hoping for better." To me, it might be the most devastating line I've ever heard on screen. In 5 words, Judith destroys everything inside Stephen. For 1 second, facing the emptiness inside him, he almost turns to the dark side, claims he doesn't have to go, he can use his power to do whatever he wants, and then he immediately realizes that's not him. He's Stephen Baxter, a decent man who's now in so much pain that he suddenly can't even bear to spend another 60 seconds alive. When he starts hungrily wolfing down that poisoned pasta, a light appears from above and a choir of 1,000 angels fills the kitchen. Nah, I'm joking. It's violent, ugly, and physically repulsive. All we get is the Son of God convulsing in his chair, making pathetic choking noises against the silence while his eyes bug out. Joffrey Baratheon's final scene, but even more grotesque because, well, we like Stephen. And then God is gone, and the entire world feels it, knows it to be true. Not a presence, but a sudden terrifying absence. The third testament is the silence that follows. It's the realization that we are finally, truly alone, with no one to blame for our failures and no one to thank for our luck. It's a downbeat ending, but there's a strange, cold hope in the idea that now, for the first time in history, whatever happens next is actually up to us. So there we go, 2 very different executions of the same idea, way too similar to be coincidental in my mind. Both show a pitch made by an authoritarian power, but unlike in Angel or Mass Effect, as per my previous video, where our heroes may have regretted the choices they made from those presented, in both of these stories our protagonists refuse the options altogether, rejecting the concept of the choice itself, and end up arguably better for it. RTD's version works better because it forces the idea to happen at human scale. In the Second Coming, the eviction of God isn't a victory speech delivered to cosmic parents, it's a private, viciously intimate argument between 2 people who have known each other forever, in a room that refuses to become symbolic. The kitchen is a creative straitjacket for the writer. No fleets, no visions, no psychedelic space warfare involving billion-year-old giants, which means the thesis has to survive contact with recognizable human forces. Love, resentment, moral blackmail, fear of abandonment, the need to be needed, and it has to do it up close and personal in the most ugly, honest, and human way possible. Judith's third testament lands because it isn't presented as philosophy, it's presented as an accusation you can't wriggle out of. As long as you're here, we don't grow up. Of course, the same argument is made by Sheridan and Delenn, but in Babylon 5 the accusation is directed at them, the alien others, the distant parents. In the Second Coming it's directed at him, the best friend, the person she loves, if not in that way. It turns a grand political stand into an intimate betrayal, and when the divine collapses, it collapses physically, repulsively, without any operatic consolation. RTD denies us the comfort of spectacle, and in doing that he makes the metaphysics feel more real, because they arrive through the same mechanism that wrecks ordinary lives, the blunt final confession that somebody never loved you back. And that's why Babylon 5, brilliant as it usually is, doesn't quite stick the landing in Into the Fire. It isn't that JMS can't do emotion inside a big space opera, he does it constantly. The Shadow and Vorlon eviction scene asks for a much bigger tonal pivot all at once. Ancient horrors become bickering parents terrified of being alone, John Sheridan becomes a cosmic courtroom orator, and then the whole thing resolves quicker than expected via Lorien. Demystifying the monsters can absolutely work, but here it happens so fast it reads less like revelation and more like deflation. The Second Coming earns the same demythologizing because he anchors it in one relationship and one irreversible act. Babylon 5 tries to do it at the level of the cosmos. To me, that's the difference, how tightly the big idea is bolted to a human pressure point, and RTD drives that bolt straight through the heart. Thanks for watching, and please help me out by doing at least some of the things, share, comment, like, subscribe. I have a wide remit, but my main mission right now is analysing every scene of Andor. Commissions are available, I'll analyse any scene you like. Check out my Patreon if you want to help this channel survive some big changes afoot in my life. Oh, and I have a podcast, same name everywhere. See you next time.